Ah,
Vous pensez que ça...
si vous en avez besoin.
J'espère que ça ira comme ça, si c'est tout simple.
Ouais, ouais, ouais.
Over here. Come to the front.
Il faudra utiliser le micro pour le record.
So a video recording without the micro.
Okay, guys. Hope everybody had a good journey to Vienna. I see it's not that far. We are very glad and happy and honored to be continuing our program in partnership with NEOS and the NEOS Lab. And I would like to introduce you to Birgit Allerstorfer, who is the director of the NEOS Lab and who is, hosting us for today. Before we start the continuation of the program, I would like you to say a few words of welcome to our friends.
Thank you very much, Thibault. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues and friends. A warm welcome here in Vienna at the NEOS Lab. We are the think tank, the Educational Academy of NEOS here in Austria. And my name is Birgit Allerstorfer. As I've been introduced before, I'm the director of this academy, and I'm very honored and very glad to host you here today. And I'm also very glad to bring the best wishes on behalf of Beate Meindl-Reisinger, our party leader, our chairperson of NEOS. She conveys her best wishes and regards. She's very busy at the parliament at the moment. You know, we have snap elections, we have parliamentary days today, we have the free flow of forces at the parliament with our expert government. So it's a very special time that needs very special actions. And so she has to excuse herself, but sends all her best wishes and also fruitful discussions, insights and outcomes at this Emerging Parties Summit. Also a big thank you to you and to IRI for asking us, for inviting us to co-host this summit. We do this with great pleasure. Invite you to this stay here in Vienna. Also, I hope to a very nice and friendly summer evening today. And of course, before a day with a lot of sharing of best practices. We will have this general presentation of you in the morning, and I think the afternoon will be the core part of NEOS, where we present our history, our learnings, our best practices, and also political entrepreneurship of our founding director, Josef Lensch. So there will be a broad perspective of NEOS input we can offer, and of course, I think also a core part, this roundtable in the afternoon, where I'm glad to wrap up with all of you together the findings of these 2 days and how we maybe are able to strengthen our emerging parties and create positive shared visions for the future. I think it's crucial times and a big chance for all of us to advance our common goals. So I think this was for the introduction, and now I'm handing the micro over to Thibault and your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Birgit. We are going to start with something that is that we've been working on at IRI and Fondapol for more than a year now. We have been working on a 42 country survey of public opinion, studying the approaches, values and approaches of citizens to democracy. When I talk about 42 countries, it's not only 42 countries, it's almost 37,000 respondents, people from basically all the countries that you represent. We asked them 15 questions relevant to their views about democracy and their values, and the result is going to be presented to you by Dominique Reynié, professor at Sciences Po, but also very importantly for this purpose, the director of CEO of the Foundation for Political Innovation, which with whom we have partners. Actually, IRI was rather the junior partner here because Fondapol really took the bigger budget and took in charge the publication that we're going to give you at the end of this talk. And so, without further ado, I will leave Dominique present the fascinating results of this survey, and hopefully we can have a discussion afterwards. Dominique, the mic is yours.
Thank you, Thibault. Maybe with the screen? Okay. Thank you very much, Thibault. Maybe, if I remember well.
Yes.
Ah, yes. Okay. As Thibault said just now, we managed this huge survey. I hope you know that it's not very frequent to have this kind of survey, a worldwide survey in 42 countries. Was a very important issue to do that. If you are interested, it would be possible to talk about this survey in itself in the Q&A session. Just in order to explain one point to you, the field of this survey in 42 countries was between September and October of the last year in 5 weeks. Just in 5 weeks, it was very important for us to ask questions almost at the same moment in the different countries in order to avoid the effects of conjuncture on the national field and on the result at the end. The starting point of this survey, the idea, the intention, was to inform ourselves about the state of democracy in this historical moment. Because it's clear, I think, for everybody that democratic regime is entering now in a very specific moment, probably a quite dangerous moment for this form of political organization. Even if you are sure that it's a very good regime, it's not a sufficient aspect in order to ensure its sustainability in the new century coming. So this, okay, maybe, yes. From this survey, from this result, I can summarize in some ideas. Of course, it's not possible to summarize this survey, and the documents are coming, as Thibault said. We will see with the documents, the 2 volumes, how is important. And also you have on our 2 websites, from in IRI website and our Fondapol website, you have all the data in open data, which is for each data, for each country, you have in 33 languages the entire data, okay, the complete data. And it's possible for you, if you are able to do that, to play with this data and to produce new results according to the very rich stock of this information about opinion in 42 countries now. So, resuming this result is to insist on a very paradoxically aspect, which is that we have quite good news in one hand, but in other hand, less good news, even bad news. And it's not easy to understand why we have these 2 aspects of the result and two possibilities to interpret the results in a very different, in 2 very different ways. To start with the good news, the principle of democracy remain widely endorsed, which is very clear. It's about the principles, about the values. People are strongly, largely supporting the values of democracy. If we just some slides, because we know that it's not possible to use too many slides. Globally speaking, first of all, citizens are strongly in favor of globalization. Was not sure when we started. People are in favor of globalization, and people are clearly in favor of pluralistic societies. In our survey, it's very clear. If I ask about globalization as opportunity or as a threat, the result is quite clear. For the 2/3 of respondents, globalization is an opportunity. It's a sort of strong indicator. Maybe you know this indicator, very efficient, globalization, threat or opportunity, very efficient in order to measure if people are open-minded with this new world. So it's a very important information. Also the fact that a large majority of people are in favor of freedom of enterprises, which is coherent with the support of globalization and showing that a large part of people in our democracies are open to this new world. They are not confronted with, maybe much more supporting this new era as we see in these slides. If I consider this slide very clear, very important, and for each of this item, you have a lot of data in our survey, even a printed document. For example, here, the ability to protest, march in the streets and dissent, 82. The ability to take part in the decision-making process, 96. The ability to vote for the candidate of your choosing, 97. Having the right to say what you think, 1908. Well, it's very clear, very strong. It's not possible to have a stronger result. So it's very encouraging for us if we want to analyze the link, the relation with the democratic regime. But we have also some less good news. Some negative indications, and I want to show you this new series of slides, less optimistic. First, the fact that half of the respondents are dissatisfied with the way in which democracy is working. Here you have the total responses, very well and well. Of course, it depends on the country, of course, but you have here the average level for EU, just 50%, or the global level, meaning the 42 countries, 51%, which is not a lot. Not a lot. It's just half of the respondents. You have, of course, very high level of satisfaction in a country like Switzerland or Norway or Luxembourg, Denmark, etc. It's very classical, very well known. But for the majority, for the average level, it's not a so good result. It's quite a bad result. In the same sense, it's very important to insist on this aspect. People are not sure that a democratic regime is able to manage a real power. When we ask people about that, they are just 12% answering that elected representatives have the power. Just 12%. Or just 6% considering that people has the power, which is quite ironic in a regime like the democratic one, because this regime is supposed, of course, to give the power to the people. And even if we know that it's not exactly the people who is deciding directly, elected representatives are in general, in a government, in representative government, are in general considered as people having the real power. It's not the case from the public opinion. if I add to this slide this one, which is the level of confidence in major political institutions. This is the average, one more time, okay? Parties, it's a disaster, 23%. It's not new for you, you know that, but it's a confirmation of a strong trend in the democratic system. Political parties are not popular at all. Even if it depends on the country, but the below, as you see. Media, 34, government, parliament, unions. It's we don't have here a good result, but maybe less good or bad. I could add, and this is a document, a printed document, I could add other institutions, very popular. The best popular institutions are police, armed forces, schools, hospitals. Sorry? No. I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right. In such countries, yes, but in average, not at all. Churches, no. No. I mean, it's something like, I don't remember exactly the figure, but something like between 35 or something like that. And judicial system at a lower level, but quite good. And depending on the country. In such country, it's a very low level for the judicial system. Speaking, it's linked to the level of corruption. Same for police. Police is very high, but in such countries, very low because of problem of corruption. But the top four is armed forces, police, schools, hospitals, which is very interesting if we consider in what kind of institutions people are confident. This is a very specific of institutions delivering utilities, pragmatic utilities, and it's a very important point for the rest of our presentation. More worrying is the trend to ask, to call in question, to contest maybe the importance of voting. Voting is worthwhile because elections can make a difference. It's a strong majority, 70%. But on this crucial question, central issue, we have 30% answering that voting is pointless because politicians don't care about the will of the people. And I think it's a very, very negative aspect revealed by our survey. And in one more time, in such countries, this level is much more high. The idea is that the electoral process in my country is not transparent. It's shared by 43% of people, which is a lot. 43% of people in the democratic world are thinking that the electoral process in their country is not transparent. And when we test, very interesting test in the public opinion, when we test different forms of political organizations, we have this kind of reaction from the public. And you can observe the characteristic of each of these items, the classical, the basic, fundamental item, having a democratic political system with an elected parliament that controls the government, okay? Approving is 82%, which is good news, okay? But for the rest of the list, if you observe the list, the rest of the items, they have a common point, which is they are all based they are all political organizations without voting. Having citizens deciding what is the best for the country, meaning direct democracy, okay? 72. Expert deciding for the country, experts are not 57. Amazing aspect, problem, new issue revealed by this survey. It's very important to consider this aspect. Granting the right to vote only to citizens with a sufficient level of knowledge. Okay? That we call epistocracy. Epistocracy. The power to decide reserved to people with a minimum level of knowledge. In general, when we are in favor of this kind of organization, we consider ourselves with a sufficient level of knowledge, I suppose. So it's this item is revealing a capacity for a large part of the public, 38%, to expulse others from the right to vote, in order to, in the name of the competence and the knowledge. It's the first time this question is asked in a survey, international survey. The result is amazing for me, and announcing something wrong in our democracies. More hard, being led by a strong man. This is the question. This is the wording. Precisely, we choose this wording. A strong man is very clear. We doesn't have to worry about parliament or elections. It's clear. And we have 31% of people backing this kind of political organization, which is a dictator, clearly. And finally, having the armed forces governing the country, 21%, which is a lot, considering, one more time, the wording of this item. As a structure, as a new structure, as a new trend, our survey reveals a very, very bad news, which is the declining of democratic culture among the new generations. And it's a trend, because we managed a survey 2 years ago with my Foundation for Political Innovation, in 26 countries, not 42, but 26. And at this time, we analyze the same trend. It's a very big question. And it's new. We are able to talk about a process of deconsolidation of democratic culture in our societies due to the renewal of the generations. You can observe here the differences if we take in account the generations, the age. For example, here, people age 60 and over compared with people under 35. And the difference, to be frank, are very important, even if it's not always clear for people without the we don't use often this kind of data. Having a political system, the first classical, fundamental conception of a democratic regime, it's 86% among people aged 60 and more, but it's 81 among the new generation. It's a decline. It's a clear decline. If I consider the granting the right to vote only to citizens. You remember this question just a few minutes ago? 48% among the new generation. Half of the new generation. It's incredible. I was very surprised by this result, personally. A strong man, 38%. 38. Bye-bye, 1968. Sorry? Yes, 31, yes. It's incredible, no? It's very important. And if I remember that police, army are very, very popular, are on the top of the popularity for the institutions, it's clear that we have a strong movement, deep movement in favor of a sort of authoritarian interpretation of the democracy, maybe what we call illiberal democracy. Maybe a strong movement. Yeah, yeah.
Do you think it's new generation or it's young people? My question is, in France, where
Yeah.
young people vote since a very long time. So if 50 years ago we make a study on young people, we will say they don't vote. But when they get older, they vote.
Okay.
Is it a new generation or is it
Okay, that's a very complex question. No, really, it's a very interesting, very complex question. Difficult to make an answer. But the idea is, no. It's a very important question. The phenomenon, the classical phenomenon, for example, young people are not voting in general, but aging, they are going to vote as we observe in the past. But now, when we analyze, and in each country it's possible to do that, when we analyze the impact of the populist vote among the new generation, we know that it's quite important, very important in such a country, in France, for example. If we consider young people without a high level of education, they are voting at the first place for the National Front, named today Rassemblement National. But we have this new data now, not just coming from polls and surveys, but electoral results, which is quite solid. So, please. This specific this. We asked some questions in the previous survey. Yeah.
We have seen it 10 years ago because this is
Oh, okay.
it might be that just younger people are less responsible and eventually
Okay.
they age into
Okay.
more natural
Okay.
responses because it's very important to understand if it's really the new generation, so if we should be afraid for the future or it's just young people that eventually they just come.
Okay. So I could add something, and in a printed document you have a chapter written by Pierre Bréchon, which is one of the managers of the European Values Survey. You know this European Values Survey is a big survey made each 10 years in order to observe the evolution in Europe of the values. And we asked Pierre Bréchon to make a comparison between our data and the data of the European Values Survey, which is the very solid source of information. And on this aspect, it's clear that we have the same the results than the European Values Survey, which is the rising of an authoritarian mentality, even among the new generations. It's quite now an established event. We are quite sure that it's a trend.
We have this nice studies done by a psychologist called Daniel David at Cluj University in Romania, generational impact in politics. Now, the threshold right now in 2019 should not be necessarily 35. It's actually better to be something like 40-ish, because what's happening is that the Generation X, if we are related to the generational theory, Generation X, we're talking about 68 to late 70s, so 40 to 50 years old right now. They are the last ones having contact with the communist regimes. So at least for the entire Central Eastern Bloc, this is quite critical. Yeah. So now everything that comes after, let's actually quite important to be able to relate to the experience before 1989 or not. And that's actually very interesting as a generational study, because you use the word generation. So the question was very well put, is it age or generation? I believe that in Romania and in several other countries in Central Eastern Europe, 40 to 50 are a generation, because there are people that have not been stained enough by the communist values. They were quite young, but at the same time they were queuing, they were seeing their parents, listening to Free Europe radio under their mattress and things like that. Yeah? So that's something quite relevant, 40 to 50 right now. Before 40, then you can split it in, millennials or whatever.
Very, very good remark. Very good remark. I agree with you. We have to make a difference between age and generation. Was very clear in your remark. I agree totally. Concerning the millennials, we have Thibault, and he's he has a lot of to say about this very important generation. But just in order to make this data more specific, you're right that enforcing the fact that if we consider a country or an area taking into account history, we have a lot of information in order to explain this kind of evolution. But in our survey, this is just a short presentation. In our survey, we have all the answers with all, and it's possible for you to check at 18, 19, 20, etc. You have all the results for a year, exactly, year by year. And it's obvious that this trend is always present in the most young people, in the most young generation. So even if your remark is very important, and thank you to make it.
So, okay, you've tested the idea of dictatorship.
Yeah.
The other tendency that would be interesting to see the impact on democracy is exactly the opposite tendency, the neo-Marxism.
Mm-hmm.
So that is, to have things governed by the people.
Mm-hmm.
It can be actually the second option.
This one.
Right?
Yeah.
That would be the equivalent of the neo-Marxism nowadays, or how do you see that? With, again, prevalent things that people should decide without politicians, without intermediation, and so on and so forth.
I don't know the role played by the Marxist tradition in this kind of answer or support of this item. I'm not sure. Maybe something like a result of the crisis of confidence in representative institutions. Maybe it's something expressing the skepticism of people regarding the capabilities of the public power to act when we vote. Okay, we vote, and you are not able to act in a very, very practical term. Maybe also for a generation, millennials, for example, is a result of the new public sphere. The new public sphere, and of course the web, the social network, as you know, social media, as you know, are strongly in favor of this kind of dream or utopia or project. I don't know exactly, because it's too soon to know that, but the possibility to govern without elected people. In France, just to comment about this question, and we could come back to this aspect if you are interested. In France, Gilets jaunes, yellow jackets, are clearly the first movement in our history trying to act, politically speaking, without representation. Spontaneism. I don't know exactly. Without program, without elected people that didn't want, without election, without representative people. Very, very interesting to observe this very strange power project, to act spontaneously. Yeah.
Would we have sociologically now, because
Yeah.
all of us have the feeling that the antidote to populist, to illiberalism is more Europe and more sociologically with numbers, can we prove this?
You mean what kind of the social class?
No, we have now in Europe parties like neo-fascists,
Yeah.
like all in
Okay.
all
Populist and other. Okay.
yeah. And the antidote for these parties,
Yeah.
for these ideas, are parties like ours.
Yeah. Okay.
More pro-European
Yeah.
parties,
Yeah.
open parties.
Uh-huh.
And can we prove it sociologically? Because yesterday in Bratislava, our colleagues from the Progressive Party and from the Spolu, they show us they want to make a campaign against these fascists and populists to show them more Europe.
Okay.
They put the
Okay.
image from Macron against
Okay.
Putin or Xi. And can we prove this also with numbers?
Okay. That's a question. That's a question for you. That's a question for our meeting. Wonderful. Thank you very much. No. Let me follow, and I promise you to answer to your question. Very important. Very important question. No. And if you ask me again, please. The same idea, maybe more impressive, regarding the same difference between under 35 and over. You have here, for example, between 35 and 59 and 60 and more and over. Okay. The question is very simple. A democratic system is the best possible. Okay. Yes or no? Yes. Yes. 60 and over. Yes. 76%. Okay. Democratic system is the best possible among people aged between 25 and 59. Yes, 66. Less 10 points. Under 35, 62. Less 4 points from the previous one. So it's very clear on this slide. These people are a part of the young generation, are responding that democratic system is not the best possible, okay? Which is an impressive, I don't know for you, for me it's very impressive, due to what we know about history and the fragility of a democratic system is very, very. So, we have, in one hand, we have a large support among public opinion of the democratic system in terms of values and principles. That's a very interesting point. But on the other hand, we have a rising skepticism concerning the reality of the democratic power, okay? The effectiveness of the people elected. That's the point we have to keep in mind, because it's the starting of my answer to your question, which is maybe we don't have to fight in order to convince people that these values, our values, are the best possible. Because people are quite convinced of that. The question is, are you able to be efficient when I vote for you? Are you able to deliver practically efficient? Okay, the value, I'm okay. It's not still, it's not totally exact. Like now, people are supporting strongly all the values because the problem of the declining of the democratic culture among the new generation is sort of negative information about that, but it's still a large majority, okay? If not a minority. It's still a large majority. But the question is about the effectiveness. And if we're observing now the case, the specific case in this democratic world of our continent, our political system, Europe, I mean European Union, it's very interesting to observe the same data, but in the European political landscape. We have in Europe same phenomenon, but going faster, which is the rising skepticism about the capabilities of democratic governments. is not an exception. We have the same trend. We share this trend with the democratic world, but is stronger in Europe. And I don't know if the map is clear color, because it's an amazing map for you. This map, and it's not in the printed edition, it's just for you, exclusively. It's a map with the level of approving of the strong man, etc., the dictator. Okay, it depends on the country. I don't know if it's easy for you to read the figure. For example, Lithuania is 70%.
What means this? When it's higher, this means the country wants a strong leader.
Yeah. In Lithuania, 70% of people are in favor of a strong man. We don't have to deal with parliament or elections. Okay, it's not nothing. For example, in France it's 31, which is important. In Italy it's 41. For our friends from Italy, 41 in Italy. Okay, in Spain it's 40. I was surprised. It's 40 in Spain.
Very interesting for France, for example.
Yeah.
The only presidential republic in Europe, and only 31 wants a
Only? Only? But for me, it's very high, because we are we are the country in Europe and in the Eurozone with this stupid election, presidential election. I mean, I think it's a stupidity, very dangerous for everybody, including for you. I'm sorry, and it's very it's a real possibility for a populist leader to win this election. And if you have this kind of environment, I mean, 31% of people in favor of a strong man, etc., you could imagine the possibility for a populist party to win the presidential election, because we have just to elect one people. In Romania,
for example,
yeah, so in Greece, for example, it's just 19. In Albania is 55. In Ukraine is 64. In Germany is 38, etc., etc. It's possible to, and just in order to insist on the interest of this map, is that we are here measuring the disponibility of public opinion in a country to vote, to support an illiberal democratic project. It's not the only data very useful in order to anticipate this kind of evolution, but it's a very important information in order to do that.
Mm-hmm. They said we don't want anymore of the parliamentary system. We want to have a strong man with democracy.
No, okay. And it's interesting because I'm sure this kind of guy are not in this answer. You have to add. So it's not 31, it's probably 41 if I include people with a very authoritarian conception of a power, even a power elected.
Yeah, but what we can see from this map is that in the former post-bloc,
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah.
But there is, for Poland, can be an explanation.
Netherlands and Sweden are actually very interesting because they are very low levels.
Yeah.
While Germany, the numbers for Germany, I don't know about you, Dominique, but I am
Yeah.
very, very worried about the numbers in Germany.
Yeah.
Out of all countries.
I agree. I agree.
Italy I find Italy very surprising and bad. And I find, my own country is bad, but I was kind of expecting it. But Germany, is it
38. 38.
It's with the history and all.
I agree. I agree. I agree.
Picture of the day. It's the picture of the day. For example, in Italy, they have some house now.
I agree. I can develop one argument, but just in order to share with you, we made in another survey, international survey, 4 years ago, a survey about the relation with history and the fact among new generation, I mean people aged between 16 and 29 in 31 countries. And the results are very interesting because we are assisting to the disappearing of memory. And that's why it's possible in a country like even Germany to have this kind of result. I agree, very, very impressive. So the strong man, like this data, are for me the resulting from the idea that the democratic power is not able to manage, to manage the big problems we are facing with. Is it in a democratic system, the public power is not able to fix the problem. So we are waiting for a stronger power, strong man, for example. Okay, that's an indication of this movement. This question, which is the question of immigration and the relation with Islam, is a huge issue. And it's certainly, in terms of political science, is certainly a very strong factor in order to explain this trend in favor of authoritarianism, or in favor of a strong man, in favor of this kind of illiberal culture. People are very worried about Islam. It's a fact. It's totally stupid not to take it in account, because it's a fact playing a role in this current moment and affecting all the political system, quite all, not just in Europe. The average level is 60%. 60% in the 42 countries. You have just 2 countries without a significant level of this fear with Islam. Just 2 out of 42. And the average, the global average is 60, but the European average is 68. 68. And you have here the central part of Europe. The level is higher and higher, country after country. It's a very, very important question. I don't understand why it's not a key subject for people ruling the parties, ruling the government, specifically when they are trying to fight the populists, to fight the neo-fascists, etc. It's a key. It's a question of border. It's a question of etc. Oui, yeah. Why? Because yeah. But it's very, for example, Japan, 61%. Same situation. Why are you afraid by Muslim in Japan? I ask Japanese colleagues. The answer is, we are afraid because we are looking for you. And it's going very bad in your country. So we have to try to prevent this kind of immigration in our country, because it's a disaster. If I observe the European landscape, big problems, very problems to manage that, so it's not a good idea to accept this kind of immigration. That's very, very clear for Japanese people.
It is, if I'm looking correctly, what you're putting there is that there are countries, like 5 countries in Europe, 4 of them in Central Eastern Europe, that are more threatened by Islam than Israel. I mean,
Yeah.
Israel is with 76.
Yeah.
So then there are 4 Central Eastern Europe and Cyprus that have actually, the threat for doesn't make any sense.
No, I think nothing is without a sense in this kind of question, because we ask people, and a lot of people, as Thibault said, or something like 37,000 people, which is a lot, of course. Yeah. I think it's the effect of the observation, the effect of the public sphere, the effect of the agenda setting, the effect of the different crises in other countries. For example, the crisis of cartoons in Denmark in 2008, in 2004, sorry, was a disaster in this aspect, or in France, Charlie Hebdo, or this kind of terrorism. It's a sort of very, very large consideration about immigration in general, Islam particularly. In Belgium, it's very, very clear. But other countries observing these countries or having information on the web is probably what we call, I don't know how to qualify this kind of. It's not a fantasy. It's a point of view about a problem before to be facing it. In Europe, in the 28 member states, are you worried about immigration? Yes, 69. Okay, yes, 69. So it's not possible for a political party, for a democratic government to ignore this data. You could do that, but it's a suicide, politically speaking. And in this case, you let the monopoly of this question to the populist parties, to the neo-fascist party, etc. And plus you lead people to think that you are not interested in their problems, okay? Because you are not agree in order to take into account this aspect of the politics. Of course.
Did you go a step deeper, asking about the worries and the concerns on maybe one level deeper? So what is it? Because you were describing in your discussions with Japan and so on that you want to prevent a disaster like this in Europe, but did you also ask maybe a bit more? Yes. You have in the document. No. Okay, no, good question. No, we ask about different reasons why. And for example, it's a good question because I could add something. European people are not at all racist. We ask that. We have, of course, few people like that, but it's a minority. In general, they are tolerant. They are not against religion or different religions. They are in favor of the welcoming of refugees. In the survey, it's very clear. But they are afraid by several consequences, and we ask about these consequences: economic reason, the clash between cultures, security or terrorism. We have different elements in the survey. Because the question,
of course, is too large. Yeah, of course. You're right.
And we can say also 31% of people who are not worried at all about immigration.
Yeah.
When you know that in Africa, in 30 years, tomorrow, there will be 3 billion of people in Africa. Of course, we have a big pressure
Of course.
immigration. So we can say I'm worried, but we have the right solution.
Yeah, of course. And in order to conclude, just this other aspect of our survey, very interesting and quite more optimistic, or possibly optimistic, which is the fact that in this very difficult context for the democratic system, in the EU, we reveal a very high interest for the resizing of the public power through the union. And it's certainly something like the last hope for a large part of citizens supporting the democracy, which is to resize this power through the union. For example, quickly, some arguments and data about this aspect of the European public opinion. Are you worried about immigration? Yes, you remind this result, 69%. But concerning immigration, the best solution is to treat the problem at the EU level, 68. It's very important. It's not a nationalistic movement. You mean? You see, it's not a nationalistic movement. It's not exactly, for all the part, a populist fear. It's also the wait for more union in order to manage this very complex problem, which is immigration, and specifically in society like our societies, of course. A second argument in favor of more Europe, very fascinating data about the support of Euro and Europe. In the, if we consider the average level in the Eurozone, the support of Euro, 62%, is much more important than the support of Europe, 49%. Which is a very interesting information about what people are waiting for. I mean, a very pragmatic power, public power, like, for example, Euro, because Euro is protecting my own patrimony, my personal patrimony, in terms of interest, material interest, and they are strongly in favor of Euro. And the other information, very important, is the fact that even in countries where the populists are very strong, for example, Italy, the support for Euro is a majority, 54. So, same for Austria, same for France, same for all the countries with a populist problem. This means that for the populist parties, it's probably not possible to put on their political program the end of the euro. So they have to become more European. And it's very interesting, this process of integration of these anti-system parties in a system which is the European one. Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course. But it's a sort of protection of our democracy through the euro by public opinion. Not for a reason like principle and values, but for pragmatic reason, which is quite solid, maybe more solid. This, I don't know if it's clear, but the color is not easy, maybe, but the idea is simple. European citizens are strongly in favor of a European army, okay? And we have details on the document also about this question. People are strongly in favor of European army. They are, in the same time, in favor of NATO. It's not a contradiction to support NATO and the European army. So probably the consequence of a sort of new fear in this new world, quite dangerous, because of terrorism, because of risk of war. We don't know if we are in a so peaceful moment as in the recent past, and probably we are able to register this transformation, this evolution of public opinion in this data. In every country concerned by the EU is very, very strong. Not in all countries, but in the most part of the countries, it's very high level. Even if we know that the idea of an European army is very difficult to deliver, but it's a strong indication. Yeah? Great Britain is 35. But we don't know, unfortunately, because it's sad, if Great Britain is still a member of the European Union, and it seems that no, it's going bad. Last information about this waiting for more Europe. Very interesting, very surprising. I'm sure you didn't know that. I was myself very surprising. The trust in the European Parliament among European citizens. the level of trust is higher than the trust in the national parliament, the average. Okay, it's 5 points. It's interesting. Same for the executive power. The trust in European Commission, 43. The trust in national government, 34. We have 10 points, 9 points. Yeah.
Have you checked the awareness of people in terms of making a distinction between the European Parliament and Commission? Because I don't know to what extent this is true in other countries, but I'm fairly sure that for Hungary the case is that people don't really know the difference between these institutions, which could explain potentially why they give such similar rankings to the Parliament and the Commission.
No, of course, when you ask this kind of question, we don't know exactly what is the level of information of the respondent. But if you have to produce an evaluation about different institutions, for example, European Parliament and national parliament, you are able to make a superficial difference. And these results are quite coherent, because I checked after our survey indications produced by the Eurobarometer. They have the same results. I've checked after, they have the same results. So it's a sort of trend. Maybe the explanation is the fact that people are more confident in a public power resized in order to face to a globalized challenge. It's not exactly the same thing, and probably it's a sort of explanation. I've just to, yeah. Surprised because in general when we test the level of confidence in a person or an institution, we know that we have a strong link between the fact to know the person or the institution and to have to trust this person or institution. And in general, when we don't know, we distrust. So it's. Okay. I would guess people know a bit more about what federal does. Interesting. We didn't ask. We ask, of course, American citizens about the trust in the federal elected institutions, not about the local institutions. But in general, and on this aspect particularly. It is in the document. The level of trust in the United States is much more higher than in Europe. Yeah, much more. It's very clear. And in order to share with you the new slide, just to show that European Union is still considered as an attractive institution, this political system. If we consider the fact that the countries now candidating to the EU are strongly in favor of EU and the euro, except Serbia. Serbia is a specific country in our survey. I let you to see that, but Europe is still having a very strong power of attraction, and it's a very interesting and good news. And to end on this slide, I want just to make a short comment about this slide. We've decided to build an index of democratic culture. So this is the result. You have the index. All the countries have been ranked on this index. The first one is Malta, and the last one is what is this index? I could explain the detail. You have the detail in the volume 2, in the first pages of our method. But I trust really this index. I want just to give you a key in order to read correctly this result. Because it's quite surprising, for example, to see Malta at the first rank. It's not an index, for example, like the index made by The Economist, is not an index about the democratic state and the way in what is more or less able to respect the principles of the democratic organization. It's not at all this kind of index. It's an index measuring the disponibility among people to have a democratic system. So it's not at all the same method. Here we have an indication concerning the civil society. Not if, for example, the judge are independent or not, the press is or not independent, etc. It's not this kind of data. It's what people are waiting for their own country. And they are strongly, for example, in this sport, they are strongly in favor of a democratic culture, a democratic system in their country, even if in such cases the state is not at all or not enough democratic. Okay? Sorry? Yeah. And on this part, under the average level is 5.3. Same for the global level, 42 countries. On this part, you have the countries where the civil societies are not clearly in favor of a democratic system. And for me, I'm sure that this index is able to help us to anticipate the evolution of the political affairs in a country in the next months or years. For example, France is at the same level than Hungary and Italy. Okay, and I think it's a sign that we have a problem in France. We know that we have a problem, and it's not sure that the next presidential election, 2022, will produce a good result in terms of democracy, etc. And we have here different countries. Certainly, it's my hypothesis, certainly confronted in a few months or years with a quite big problem in their political life. And just in order to conclude by a sentence, an idea, a thesis that I want to share with you, as you see, we have informations quite diverging depending of the type of items. Large support for the principles and the values of a democratic system, but rising skepticism concerning the efficiency. So my question is, or my hypothesis is, we are not entering in a new century, in a new era, where the question in our democracy will become the choice between a democratic system with a low level of efficiency. For example, if I'm a part of the public opinion, I say I am in favor of a democratic system, even if it's not efficient, because for me, the first, the freedom, okay? And for other part of our population in our democracies, people supporting an efficient system, political system, even without elections. So I'm sorry, but my life is too hard. I prefer a political offer more efficient in order to deliver utilities that I'm waiting for, even if it's a system without election or with a very low level of democracy. In one word is a way between the choice between our democratic system, a Western system, and Chinese one. Chinese one. Because the big difference with the past cleavage, when we was the choice between the West and the communist system, the Soviet system, was a choice between a democratic and efficient system and a non-democratic and inefficient system. It was clear. But it's not the same question. If we are entering in a moment where we have, facing our democracies, confronted to big problems that are very difficult to manage, a system, not at all democratic, but very efficient, the Chinese model. I think it's a new struggle for us and quite more difficult than the previous one. I hope so.
But I have a friend, he's manager since 1986 in China, at Volkswagen, now he is retired, and he say me, when the freedom, when the people will see, also in the political system, that they cannot manage the freedom, I want to disappear from China directly across North Korea. Because it's such a big ball, and all these things will explode. Because I was 7 years ago in China, in the Tiananmen Square, and I stayed at the mausoleum from Mao, and come a girl with a very, very expensive bag, and she get out from a Bentley and stay to the line and cry. And she's crying and waits to see Mao. And I ask her, you know, if Mao would be alive, you would not have such a Bentley, not such a 20,000 euro bag. And she doesn't understand this, because they have a kind of liberty. They can come in Europe and visit and see, but they cannot speak free about things what happen.
So it's a question you have right to discuss. It's just an hypothesis.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dominique. Please join me in thanking Dominique for this presentation. I'm afraid the discussion that we would like to have with you guys about the results of the survey is going to be shortened this time because we have to leave in 5 minutes to another presentation, public presentation that we're doing. A few things. Dominique and I will be back immediately after this presentation, so we can actually have a discussion not during your lunchtime, which is right now, but during the coffee break. The other thing is that this presentation is part of a it's not even a European tour, it's a global tour because you're going to Brazil in September. And we were in America last week for the presentation in Washington. We're going to tour Europe together, sometimes Dominique on his side, sometimes me on my side, sometimes both of us, most of the time both of us together, which means that we will be probably in your countries very early on, so, well, very early on, very soon. So we probably will have Latvia in July, Romania probably in September, Poland in October, so Bulgaria in September as well. So if you want to know more about it, if you want to organize something, please come to me, and we can discuss how we can organize and when, in order to have a maximum impact. Because as you can see, the results of this survey are fascinating, but most importantly, and that's on our side what we want, I think it is fundamentally useful for your work in political parties to understand the dynamics of public opinion, and most importantly the deep thoughts, what is behind very often when we do polls, and I know very well because I've been doing polls with politicians for 8 years right now. The only thing that is of interest to them is what are my ratings, and what are the election results if the election is tomorrow. This time we have none of these questions, so there is nothing for the politicians to captivate them on something else. But it is extremely interesting, and I think very useful if you are trying to work out your strategy for the future. So let's continue talking after lunch. Yes, Carlos.
2 quick notes. First of all, it's not Brazilian.
It's Portuguese. Yes.
You could use this data as we want. It's absolutely open, and exactly in other countries. For example, in terms of generations, you have for each cohort information for the social classes, the size of the city, lot of factors. Of course, I didn't mention in this presentation. And I encourage you, if you are interested by this survey, to share it. The very online version is easy to take it on our website, IRI website or Fondapol website, and to share with everybody who could be interested. And the data, all the open data, if I come back to the data, the open data are in 33 languages. So you have the possibility to check for each country.
Including in Portuguese. Okay, Birgit will leave you the floor. I think it's time for lunch, but we leave you and Lubos in charge of our friends, and we'll see you after lunch. Thank you very much.
So I think my words are short. You're invited to have a small lunch. It's very hot. We will have the dinner in the evening. Feel free, use our venue here, and we meet for the next presentation of the NEO story at 1 o'clock. 1 o'clock, we are here for the program again. So I think